Hello there, Lunar Squadron, and welcome back to the channel. Today, we have a very exciting Star Wars Outlaws video as IGN just dropped 10 brand new minutes of Tatooine gameplay for Outlaws, and today we're going to sit down and we're going to analyze it and we're going to break it all down. But first, if you're new to the channel, we would love to have you as always, and the way to do that, just go down below this video, hit that little subscribe button and the bell notification right on next to it. It'll notify you every single time that Andreas and I upload. And if you would like to take this discussion beyond the comment section on YouTube, make sure to head over to Twitter and follow us at Lunar Squadron, or jump into our Discord server. All of the information for that will be down below. Now is a great time to join the Lunar Squadron, especially with our first impressions of getting hands-on and actually playing Star Wars Outlaws is coming very soon. Now, with all that out of the way, Andreas, are you ready to dive into the dune seas of Tatooine?
Oh yeah, let's do this, guys. Earlier today, we got a very pleasant surprise out of IGN First, as we got this brand new gameplay of Tatooine. And of course, we've seen some Tatooine gameplay in the SGF demonstration earlier on, but this looks like we're getting some more of Tatooine, which, Nick, that is very welcome.
You're absolutely correct, Andreas. This is incredibly exciting to see more Tatooine, because I think this is a planet that both of you and I are incredibly excited for, especially in an open world setting. And one thing that I really want to start off with this gameplay sequence is I just absolutely love the atmospheric stuff that's going on around Kay as she approaches the sandcrawler. Like I said, you have a giant sandcrawler right there. There's Jawas, there's astromechs, there's a protocol droid. Just so much great Star Wars Easter eggs to find in this one shot, and it really makes it feel like a lived-in universe that we are experiencing, because you can see that they're all dirty from all of the sand that's been hitting them. I just really love this opening sequence to start this gameplay for just all those little Star Wars details.
Yeah, I do. And Nick, I'm really glad that you're focusing on the actual substance here, because I've seen a lot of comments to this video talking about things like graphical fidelity, textures, things like that. And one thing that I do want to caveat here, just before we delve into the discussion, is from my eyes, this looks like a pretty compressed video. And I don't know if that's done on the IGN side, if it's done in uploading and compressed on YouTube, but it does look pretty compressed compared to all the other gameplay that we've broken down for this game earlier. So I just hope people understand that when they're looking and squinting at textures here, that this is probably not going to be the level of fidelity that we should expect in the game. But back to the actual substance here, Nick, I'm loving the dynamic of Kay trying to understand the culture on Tatooine, trying to understand how to negotiate with Jawas, and having that protocol droid there to translate for her. I think that was a very interesting quote, of course, referencing his prior negotiations with the Trade Federation. I think it's really interesting to see Kay delving into this world, because she's a rookie and she's here for the very first time. And so she's picking up things like how to do all of this. And I think it's going to be interesting for people like us who've been through Star Wars and know things about the Star Wars universe, versus maybe people who are playing this game from Kay's position, people who are new to Star Wars. I feel like they'll learn a lot and maybe experience this game from a different point of view.
Yeah, Andreas, I think you're absolutely correct with that sentiment. And now, as we kind of shift our focus past this first sequence into the Dune Sea, I just want to touch on a couple of things. First off, on this whole point that you just brought up about Kay being a rookie and just being thrown into this universe. And I think that's going to create a very fun dichotomy between her and ND, because you have ND, he's a seasoned veteran, he's been around for a long time since the Clone Wars, he knows what he's doing. And then you have Kay here, and this is something that the dev team has talked a lot about recently, about how she really does know nothing. She was so insulated on Canto that she doesn't even know how to say things like Sarlacc properly, and you have to imagine then she doesn't know who Jabba the Hutt is when she gets to Tatooine. So does that mean when she shows up at Jabba's palace, she's going to go in there and just start running her mouth and say things that the rest of us who know this universe and know those characters would never say? I know you and I would never walk into Jabba's palace and say certain things, because that would mean you're meeting the Rancor, or at least you're probably going to die. But here, since Kay doesn't know any better, she might approach that sequence completely differently, and we'll get this really fun gameplay sequence that you otherwise wouldn't get from characters who understand understand what universe they are in. And I think that raises a lot of very exciting potential for these actions, because there will be consequences for these actions. And the other thing I want to talk about from this Dune Sea sequence of this gameplay that we got is just how big it is. It is so expansive. It's going to be so fun to just drive around on the speeder and see what you run into. Do you run into more Sarlacc pits? These crate dragons, will they go after you? There's just going to be so much to explore on Tatooine. I can tell how big this is, and they've even included multiple screen wipe cuts to just transition to the next sequences of this gameplay. So it's pretty clear that we're going to be spending quite a bit of time on our speeder on Tatooine.
Yeah, I was really impressed by the scale of the Dune Sea, and this is something that I was always wondering, are we going to be able to traverse the entire Dune Sea, and then how big is it going to be? And I'm glad that you pointed out this screen wipe here, because, you know, it looks pretty big from this shot, and even still, they chose to skip ahead and get to this dead Sarlacc pit, because it, of course, would have maybe taken too long, or there would have been some spoilers on the way, or who knows. But I think details like the crate dragon is going to liven up an otherwise dull desert area. Just imagine being stuck in the middle of the Dune Sea without a speeder. I mean, how long would you be stuck out here? I'm really glad that we do have that speeder. One thing I noticed as Kay is driving by the crate dragon is she says, "What's that?"
What is that?
So that's going to your point, Nick, about how she's brand new to this universe and how we get to see her reactions to things for the first time. Of course, we will know that's a crate dragon, but of course she does not. And you have ND as almost like a guide for you as you're going through this universe with all of the experience that he brings. But that said, I'm still very curious about the extent of the crate dragons in this game. Like, will we be able to hunt them down, or how will those interactions play out? And speaking of interactions out in the Dune Sea, we pull up here on this Sarlacc, and immediately we realize that this is an area that we are not alone. It is an area of high value, that this Sarlacc tooth that we're trying to find is also trying to be found by some people who are looped in with the Hutt cartel, perhaps. I know they're speaking Huttese, but who knows? It just says hired gun here. And we immediately get that sense of, we have to be discreet here, get in and get out, because there could be some problems.
No, definitely. And one thing that I really love about this entire gameplay sequence is just how seamless the entire experience is. I mean, think about where you start. You start coming up on a sand crawler, you talk to some Jawas, they cut you a deal, and then all of a sudden you're on your speeder, you're out exploring the expansive Dune Sea, and then you come up on a Sarlacc pit, and then all of a sudden you slide into the Sarlacc pit, and there's this whole gigantic underground sequence inside of a dead Sarlacc, looking for a Sarlacc tooth. Like, it's really crazy if you just sit there and talk through all of this, and the fact that it's all a seamless experience will really help add to the immersion. I just really love that about this game, and I think it's something that people aren't spending enough time talking about and appreciating. And one aspect of the Sarlacc sequence that I really like is where we get to see the modular gunplay, and we see how the normal blaster cannot break those boulders, so you can switch to a more supercharged blaster, and that will destroy those boulders. So it's going to be really cool to see how you interact with your environment in order to progress through certain areas of this open world.
Yeah, and we've seen that module capability with the blaster, with the ion component earlier on, with the gameplay that we shared with you all around the time of Summer Game Fest. And this here is another way that you can use those modules here with a larger blast, and ultimately blow these rocks to smithereens. Nick, I think this has some really cool value in an open world game, using a blaster as a method to open up secret compartments and secret areas as we're traversing caves here. This really gives me almost like a Indiana Jones vibe. Maybe we're expecting with this game just going throughout the universe, hunting things down as an outlaw, and I don't know why, but this really gives me like exploring a catacomb type vibe from Indiana Jones. It gives me that like explorer vibe, and I'm really here for it.
Now, one thing that I really love about this entire gameplay sequence is if you really take a step back and consider what you are doing, you are trying to get a turret to upgrade your Trailblazer, and instead of having you use some sort of skill tree unlock system or being able to go to, say, a vendor in a city to unlock it and then just put it on your ship, say something like out of Starfield. They're really having you interact with the world that they have built. They're having you interact with the NPCs, go on these missions. I really love this expert mechanic that they've built out where you seek out these people in the universe and you seek out these missions and you go on your own little adventure to unlock these upgrades for both your character and for your ship. And I think that is such a great idea because you get these own little build your own adventures. I mean, think about what we've seen in this gameplay sequence. We showed up on a sand crawler with Jawas, and then we went through the Dune Sea, and we found a dead Sarlacc pit, and then we got blown up by a thermal detonator, and now we're in a docking bay trying to get back a Sarlacc tooth. Like, this is a crazy little adventure that they have sent us on for just a side mechanic or a side mission to unlock an upgrade for your ship, and I just love that they're doing that with this game. It's not even a main quest. This is just a side thing, and I just love this little adventure they're taking us on.
Yeah, no, that's a really great point, Nick, because I do much prefer these in-universe or almost diegetic explanations for different level ups in this game, because now when you look at your turret on your ship, you have this whole narrative background to it that you can attach to. It's tangible. It's an experience that you went through. You didn't just spend XP to unlock turret. You know, when you look at that turret on the Trailblazer, that you traded a Sarlacc tooth with the Jawas and had it installed with the Jawas. So I really like that narrative explanation on upgrades because it does provide that extra level of attachment. And one other thing I want to point out here, Nick, is this commentary from ND here, injecting a bit of comedy into this story where Kay asks, you know, how do you know that the Jawas are getting impatient? And he says, well, they're trying to disassemble me.
Kay, the Jawas are getting impatient.
How can you tell?
They're trying to disassemble me.
Okay. I'm headed back to their boss now, all right? Just, try to stay in one piece.
I think that's really great that we're getting that injection of comedy in this story. I think that's really important for a Star Wars story.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think ND is already a fan favorite. And I think by the end of this game, he's going to be a massive fan favorite. And the last thing that I just want to talk about as we close out this breakdown and this discussion is how impressed I am with the way that the combat works in this game. And what I mean by that is the way that you can approach combat sequences in this game. As you see in this showcase, you can approach it with stealth as the player attempts to do at the beginning, but they quickly throw that away and they just go in guns a-blazing. And what I love about that sequence is all of the different ways that you can take enemies down once you go into full-fledged combat. You can see that Kay uses her blaster, which apparently has a rapid-fire mechanic. She picks up a grenade launcher at one point. She drops something on somebody. She uses the stun. Like, there's a lot of different ways that you can approach enemies and take them down beyond just the stealth mechanic in this game. And I love the freedom and liberty that that's going to give players to kind of create their own little gameplay style when it comes to this game. And I think that's something that Massive has talked a lot about that they wanted to do with this game, especially it being an open world experience, is giving the players that freedom to kind of approach situations in a way that they seem best fit. And I really love that about this sequence, that they really showed that off for us here on Tatooine. I think that is really impressive to see, and I can't wait to see just how that works throughout the rest of the game, especially in the main story where you have to push the story along in a certain way. Just kind of how that mechanic works. Will there be that much freedom in those sequences, or is this more reserved for those open world and side quest type of things where you have that ability to approach things in different ways because you're not pushing a story along? But guys, let us know your thoughts down below on all of this brand new gameplay that we received for Tatooine. This was really exciting for us because we really wanted to see more of this planet. Does this have you more sold on the game? Does it have you less sold on the game? If you're not as sure, why is that? Because we would love to know everything you guys have to say about Star Wars Outlaws. Also, with our preview coverage coming up very soon, please, any questions that you have about this game, leave them down below in the comments, and we will do our best to answer as many as we possibly can that we're allowed to when we finally do release our hands-on and first impressions from Star Wars Outlaws. We cannot wait for that. But guys, that is going to do it for us for this one. Thank you all so much for watching, and as always, we will see you all next time.